You're CEO of SMBC Americas, which is the unit of Sumitomo Mitsui Banking Corporation that stretches, I believe, from Canada to Chile. Importantly, includes this rather eventful market we're sitting in now. SMBC itself is a $90 billion institution with very deep roots into the Japanese economy. So I'm very keen to dive into this, our subject here of Japan's economic rebirth. Before I do, I have to ask, with Japan among the countries now trying to negotiate a trade deal to soften the blow of US tariffs, how dependent is that rebirth on what happens here in Washington?
Yes. Well, I think the short answer is that for Japan, we're very highly dependent on how U.S. performs. And if you look at the history of the relationship and the ties in various areas, this is a very easy answer. First, there's a strong economic ties in terms of investments, financial ties. Japan is the largest U.S. Government bond holder. Japan is the largest foreign direct investor into the U.S. market. And on top of that, you have the national security agreement with the United States. So all in all, it's inseparable. It's a very important market for the Japanese.
I mean, we've heard the Japanese Prime Minister express grave concern about the tariffs. We had the Japanese chief trade negotiator in Washington last week, but leaving without a deal. You know, from what you're hearing from your clients, from your contacts in Japan, are you hopeful that there will be a deal that does soften that blow?
Yes. Well, first of all, we're very optimistic of the outcome. I think you can see that from the fact that Japan is the front runner for the negotiation. I do believe that there's mutual understanding on the both sides that you really want to, get this deal done, and kind of put that as a good example as other negotiations take place. So in that sense, I think there's a lot of positive vibe, as much as how it's told on the press. I think in reality, there's a lot of positive vibe within the negotiation.
Okay.
So I'm very positive.
So let's pull back from that uncertainty and look at what you're seeing in the Japanese economy itself. What changes do you see happening right now that give you confidence that this is the right time to be talking about an economic rebirth for Japan?
So for someone that started their career in the late 80s, so I started banking in the late 80s. So I basically worked at the bank through the last 30 years of deflation. So if you look at my salary and if you incorporate the real interest rates, my salary hasn't gone up for 30 years. So when you take that perspective, I think what you're starting to see in Japan is a very positive. Inflation is good in a way in Japan. You're starting to see a lot of positivity in terms of growth, interest rates, and the fact that wages are starting to go up. But moreover, I think what you're starting to see is that Japan is finally becoming more up to global standards in terms of corporate governance. It is attracting more foreign investments into the country, and that itself is putting more opportunities for growth.
And obviously the big sort of macro question on Japan has been one of whether it can combat deflation. Japan's finance minister just a few weeks ago was sending quite a cautious note on this. We have, seen some inflation in Japan, but he was saying that was driven largely by a weak yen and by high commodity costs rather than by rising wages for bankers and others or by consumer demand. Do you think more needs to be done to stimulate demand?
Yes, I think there's two challenges. One, I wouldn't say challenges, but one is that wage needs to go up. If you look at the corporate performance, the Japanese corporate performance, they're performing very well. So if wages go up in line with the inflations, that will push more consumptions in Japan, and that will try to create more positive, a momentum within the economy.
Right.
So that's one of the things that we need to overcome in terms of raising wages. So again, not to advertise, but I think SMBC recently announced for newly graduate students, they increased monthly salary of I think close to 20% increase on the monthly salary increase in order to be a good example of how wages should go up. So that's one thing that we need to overcome. The other is the declining population. So
Yeah.
in the longer term, there are investors that question Japan as a market, given that the population is declining and it's a mature market. So for Japan, I think one of the things they need to pursue more is more participation from females. So Japan still have challenges in promoting more females coming into the workforce. They're probably somewhere around 50% in terms of participation rate. So that needs to go up to 70, 75%. So that's one. They need to open up more opportunities for elderly. Japan historically has been more attuned to what we call class, meaning the years of working at an institution do matter, and they kind of push you out once you're 60. I think they need to open up more participation for elderly. So if you come over those two, you will be able to kind of fill in the gaps in terms of the declining population.
Just looking at the sort of interplay with the markets here, we've seen Japanese retail investors start to push more of their household savings into the stock market recently. What opportunities do you think this is going to open up, and do you see that trend continuing?
Yes. I would say that for the retail investors, historically has been putting money in bank deposits, and they don't really invest. So that was another challenge for the financial markets in Japan. The Japanese government has been strongly pushing for retail investors, retail depositors to invest more. And they have created a tax-exempt account called NISA, and that has been very successful up to date. For ones that have been shifting their deposits into investors, I would say half of them has been reinvested into U.S. stocks and bonds. So there are a lot of opportunities for the U.S. market or U.S. financial market to capture that money moving from deposits into investments.
Japan's been the biggest international
Yes.
holder of U.S. treasuries, hasn't it, with a $1 trillion stockpile. Do you think the recent weakness in the U.S. bond market, or volatility, at least in the bond market, has changed Japan's appetite for those U.S. assets?
I think people would look at things in a longer term. So as much as people might be a bit anxious in the shorter term, the long term, I don't think the sentiment will change dramatically.
Okay. So how open right now do you think Japan is to international investment, to M&A? We've seen U.S. companies attempting acquisitions in Japan. Do you think we're about to see a more open environment for M&A in Japan right now?
Yes. So from the perspective of banks like us, we do see more opportunities coming up in terms of financing foreign investors actually acquiring Japanese businesses. I think the most active players in the market today is private equity. So, all the big names that you would normally hear in the U.S. market are very active in the Japanese market. And I can't imagine major ones not having a presence in Japan today. So that's one big player. For certain industries, I do see there's more investments coming in, whether it's things like pharmaceutical, just taking as an example. I do see more activities for foreign investments coming in. So overall, I think you're going to continue to see more active investment into the Japanese market or Japanese corporates.
What about M&A in the other direction? We've seen Nippon Steel still attempting to buy US Steel. Just this week, we saw Nomura buying Macquarie's US and European public asset management business. Particularly with the dollar weakening against the yen, do you think we could see more Japanese activity coming into the US market?
Yes, I think that exchange rates will play an important role in terms of investors in Japan determining the timing of the investment into the US. But putting that aside, just going back to the first question you were asking me, for most of the Japanese corporates, US market is a market very difficult to ignore. They look at the market in the longer term, and they continue to be a top priority focus for them. And as you can see on the data, the Japanese companies have historically been the largest investor in the US market. So I don't think that would change and will continue.
Yeah. So you've made the case for why you do believe there's a Japanese economic rebirth. What do you think are the hurdles still in the path of that rebirth? What structural reforms do you think are still needed to achieve it?
Yeah. So I think the improvement in corporate governance will need to continue to evolve. I think it's in a very good track for that. Also, from my perspective, I think the market has improved quite a bit, but I think it needs to be more foreign investor friendly. Just starting with languages and also regulations and laws that are not exactly standard. I know there has been some discussions around that with the U.S.-Japan trade negotiations, but if I would generalize, there are many regulations that can be improved or enhanced in order for foreign investors to come in more smoothly.
So let's end on a question about SMBC's US strategy. You've found considerable growth in recent years. You were recently designated a primary dealer by the New York Fed. Where are you finding a gap in this market?
Gap meaning?
Where's your opportunity in the US market?
Yes. So for us, we've been operating in the US market for over 100 years. Historically, our business has been commercial lending. We started off with supporting Japanese major companies coming into the US market, helping them get working capital or foreign exchange. But over time, that has evolved into a more local business. So today, as much as it's not a household name, our business is over 90% US business. So we're no different than JP Morgan or Bank of America in terms of the business we do. I think the bigger opportunities for us is businesses beyond the traditional commercial lending, which is investment banking. It can be capital markets, M&A, global markets, trading, treasury bonds, or U.S. equities or whatsoever. And that kind of goes back to the fact that we have a strong foothold in Japan, and there are many Japanese investors that would like to have access to the U.S. market.
All right. Well, on that note, I'd like to thank you, Hiro, for joining us. And I wish your graduates better luck in their salary progression.
Thank you.